Hey everybody, this is going to be a fun one today. I know you're probably looking at the fly in the vise and you're like, oh cool, Rich is going to tie another alter ego, but no I'm not. This one's a little different. I'm going to kind of take you through the mindset behind this fly. This isn't precisely what we're going to tie here. I'll show you in a moment, but this fly, you probably get a kick out of the name when you read it, the snake oil streamer. That's kind of a poke at a lot of the stuff that we see being spun and sold and said to be somebody's own when it's not. I mean, let's face it, when we all tie flies, we're not really reinventing the wheel or coming up with new stuff, but there's a lot of people who seem to think that if by changing one material on a pattern, you've created something new, and hence the term selling snake oil is kind of where it's at. So I'll give you the basis behind this whole fly. I'll keep it short and sweet because I know a lot of people don't like to hear this. Everybody's quick, wants to know exactly how to tie something. Give me the task at hand and move from there. So the alter ego is probably one of my favorite swim flies to fish, as most of you probably already know. A good friend of mine that I fish with every year, my buddy JC, probably one of the fishier dudes I know, and a greater sense of adventure. We were talking one day while we're floating about taking that same style fly, and basically you can kind of just slightly change how this fly fishes just by how you construct this head. So the idea of coming up with a thinner, sparser body and a sparser head that was more bullet shaped kind of came to fruition, and that particular season it fished really well. So this was kind of the first style of that we used. It's basically an alter ego with a different style head, and as you can see, the collar in this isn't 180, it's 360 degrees. Well, moving forward, that turned into, well, it'd be kind of cool because I get people that like to put eyes on some of these flies, and when you start dealing with deer hair, it gets kind of problematic of fixing eyes to it, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it without adding weight. And then I found these hairlines actually selling these now. These are a product from Denmark, diamond fish eyes. These are really cool. They're plastic, and you glue the pupils on. So that turned into, let's mess around with the head style like this. And yeah, it's kind of cool. It's more eye-catching for the angler than anything, but it's kind of nice. I'm a big proponent of eyes on my streamer. So now I've added a weightless eye to this, but I've also, if you take a look at this, the head on this is completely changed. So now I have this really thin baitfish style head. So this changes the action. This thing kind of cuts through the water more. It'll kind of plane and do weird things like this based on how you cut it. And as you can see here, this is a 5-inch version, which we're going to tie today, but not that exact. And here's a 3-inch version, so same fly, smaller, and she's articulated. I know some of your heads are turning. The cool thing is you can get even crazier and turn this into some two-tone stuff. So I've got an olive over white, kind of looks like a bangtail, right, except we got a deer hair head on here. Or you've got something that's remotely close to the Swimmy Jimmy Sabota's pattern, but except instead of it being tied with the hook point down flat, you're tied in the regular plane, right? So this kind of changes how this thing fishes. So it's just something fun you can do. We're going to tie this guy in this kind of sense, but we're going to use some different materials today that are going to just give you some other options if you want to kind of mute this down a bit, get some of that flash out, and give this, just a kind of a different look. But I'm going to tie this, I'm going to have some fun with it. I'm going to use some different colors and stuff. So we're not going to do this two-tone one here. I can show you how to do this, but I talk about collars this month, actually in part 2, which drops probably the same time you're seeing this video, in my newsletter. You can check that out. Gives you a step-by-step on working on your collars, because I know deer hair gives people fits. But it'll get into the finer points and nuances of that. Today we're going to do this in a solid color. We're going to do like a black and a purple. Kind of similar to this second fly we had in here, but we're going to spruce her up a bit. So grab your favorite beverage, and get your vise ready, and here we go. Alright, so we've got a Eric's TP610, a number 1 in the vise. We're going to do a 5-inch version of this fly today. I'm going to start out with a black 140 thread. I'm using Vivus power thread, and we're just going to wrap a thread base just past the halfway point. Once we've done that, we're going to take a little drop of gel Loctite, just like we do in the Ego, because we're going to make our tails kind of like a flat scissor tail. To give this a nice little barring effect, and I've already pre-selected and cleaned up these 2 feathers. I'm doing a grizzly and a regular purple together. This is just going to be some fun. And I want my tail to be roughly about that long. So I'll take a couple turns. My first pair, take my second pair, and we're just going to mirror them right to the first pair. I want to make sure they're both the same length. As you see here, you might have to manipulate it a little bit in your hands. Once you've done that, then you can just take your thread, cover those butt ends, and go right back to the base. We're going to try and make this a muted version today, so I'm going to show you a new material. This is kind of cool stuff. This just came out at Bob in the Hood. This is Senyo's new shadow fibers. So as you can see, these shadow fibers are kind of cool. They always have a mix of white in there, so you've got like a two-tone effect. This is black, and because I'm making a fly that's black and purple. I mean, you definitely could do the purple one in there if you wanted, but I think the black kind of accent this nicely. So what I'm going to do is just get in there and grab myself about 4 fibers, preferably more black than white. I'm going to go right in, cut that, and we're going to tie this in half, right in the middle, and lay these on either side. So right down the center on this side, fold it over, right down the center on the other, and that's just going to give me a little bit of, you know, it's not even flashy, it's kind of satin. This stuff's wonderful. I'm going to do another video with some of this stuff in the next few weeks. Okay, as usual, furnace kicked on. So as you can see, those shadow fibers, they're not flashy, they're kind of muted. So like I said before, I'm going to show you a video next couple weeks using that in concert with the satin chenilles, because they really complement them well. But in this case today, how I'm going to build this fly, because we're going to have some fun with it, I want it to be a little bit of muted flash. So normally when I do my alter egos, I use sparkle brushes, but let's face it, anything that's on a wire brush these days has gotten outrageously expensive, and to be honest with you, a lot of that flash, because the consistency issues are there, it's usually too much. So a lot of your polar chenilles work really well. One of my favorites is, and they don't even put this on the packaging anymore, but it's Senyo's Aqua Veil from Hairline. This is grape soda, so like I said, I'm doing a black and a purple, but if you look at this, there's some green and some, you know, pearl in there along with the purple. So remember, when we tie these chenilles in, we want the material facing rearward because we're going to wrap it like a hackle. I just wrap over it, bring it right up to the hook eye, and because this is just one-sided, I am going to wrap this with touching turns, as you see here, right up to about the eye. And if you've done this correctly, you'll see it kind of lays rearward. So I take 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 in front, clip it, and then I'm going to lay it backwards and just build a nice little thread spot. If there's any fibers in there, this is so I can tie in my reverse tied Arctic Fox. I'm going to go in, I want a shorter section than I want for up front, so I can build my taper. So if you look at your foxtails in the round, you'll notice that there's always not always, but more often than not, there's a shorter side of hair and a longer side. So go with that shorter side. Want that hair to kind of just bleed in just past, or right up to where that flash is. I've combed out my underfur. Once I put this on here, because I want to do this all in 360 degrees, I'm going to just roll it with my fingers, take my thread, get that flash from that chenille out of the way. Make sure you go right up to the eye, build a nice little thread collar, and then what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself, you could use a John if you want, but I've had a lot of bad luck with those personally. So I just use a piece of clear tubing. This works the best. I can see exactly what I'm doing. Reverse tie, use that as a barrel. Boom. Whip finish. You can put head cement on this, whatever works for you. I'm using bone dry. Hit it with me torch. I already pre-cut my wire. Bend it. Going to use one of these MFC teardrop beads, preferably purple. Put that on there, good to go. There's my tail. Put your front hook in. It's the same one. This one's a 1/0 in the TP610. Start my thread right behind the eye. Work it right to the bend. Tie my tail in. Probably got a little too much wire because I didn't even measure. I just eyeballed it and cut it. Like so. Get your crappy scissors if you got a pair. Mine are around here somewhere. Or wire cutters. There they are. Secure your tail out of the way here. A lot of people like these. Two courses of thread up and back. Grab yourself a piece of marabou. This is just to kind of fill in the middle. We'll do about 4 or 5 turns of that, or whatever works to fill it up. Kind of eyeball it. Every marabou feather is a little different, so sometimes I can get away with 3, other times I might need more. Just kind of see how it works. We'll do 4 today, like that. Two, three, clip it. I typically try to get my little brush here while keeping some thread tension on there. Just brush that out. Back over itself, and you'll see it'll build yourself a nice little collar. And then we'll reattach our aqua veil. Advance your thread to about where you think you want your collar to be. Just like you see here. I'm going to stop just short, like so. 3. Put a 1/2 inch on there. Now, so usually what I do, and it doesn't really matter, I did this on purpose because just to show you, if you're the kind of person that has a difficult time with your proportions on flies, especially with dumbbell eyes and things of that nature, it might behoove you after you set your whole connection to get in the habit of putting these eyes on first. That way you'll always have them set up precisely. But I'm doing this for this point only, just to articulate that you can put these on, these dumbbell eyes on anytime. You could put them in now, you could put them in after you tie your rear connection in, you could put them in when you get up to that point. It's entirely up to you. You may find that it's easier to work your 360-degree collars without these things on there, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I'm going to put these eyes on now. So I'm going to advance my thread, and I'm inverting my hook in the vise here, and I'm just going to build a little thread bump, almost like a little pyramid there. Once I've done that, I put a small little drop of gel Loctite on there. Now we're going to take, and this is a 5mm diamond eye, shrimp eye. We're just going to take and we're just going to tie this guy in here like so. I take 3 turns over, hold it this way. We're just going to figure it our way through this just to kind of lock it in place. What you can also do is you can push it right up against that, and that works pretty well. And lock that bad boy in. And then I take 3 series of turns right around the base, so I'm going underneath like so, and then go right back. What you can also do, I found it works well, is you get yourself some of this Bone Dry Plus, which has a really, really thin, kind of like a straw, to push that resin through. And I go right around the base and over the tops of the eyes here, like you see. And that'll just kind of help seat that in place. And then when you're done, like you always do with your resin, you can see those things light right up, right? Just hit it with your torch. Now, what you're going to want to do, and you don't necessarily have to add this, but it just kind of complements it. When I'm tying the Egos or any other ones that usually have Firefly or other flash in there, I add this stuff in. So I'm going to take some more of that shadow fiber. Same thing, about 4 strands. If you can, get more that are dark than the white. Tie them in just like you see here, like that. And because of their length, I don't even really have to cut them. I mean, you can if you want. I want that to bleed into the rear. Then we're going to go in, and you're going to want to find your longer fox hair off your tail. So you look at your tail here, go in, find your bundle, cut it right at the base if you can, as close to that as you possibly can get it. Take your comb out all that under fur. Top side as well. I'm going to tie it in reverse. Roll that. You saw I just pushed down on it. You're probably going to have to spin it a little bit so that we get it 360 degrees around that hook. And just take a look at it. Build a nice little collar. Now, because this is you have a larger eye on there, it's actually behooves you to have some bigger tubing for that, so that you can, and something that's stretchier, so you can get it over those eyeballs. So my larger piece isn't right here, so I'm going to cut a piece right now so I have it. Give me a second here, folks. There we go. So I use a thicker piece of tubing just so I can get it past those eyes, as you see here. And if you got any errant fibers or hairs that get caught in there, deal with them after. Once you get it over that, then you can just take your thread and build your barrel collar on there like we do. If there's any fibers you don't like, just cut them out of the way before you start getting crazy. It's a good time to kind of brush through some of that. What I like to do, because I'm going to be changing threads, is I'll whip finish this And then just to add a little bit of security to it, some resin. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reattach my gel spun for all my deer hair work. Alright, so now we're going to start our deer hair section. We're going right back to, like we do with all the deer hair flies that I tie, we're going to use some gel spun. So here's some black gel spun. I'm going to start it back behind that dumbbell eye. Lay a slight thread base, lock it in, and then you can kind of flatten it with your fingers. I'm going to cut some black deer hair. This has got a slight curve to it, but there's enough of it that's straight enough that I can use for my collar. I'm going to measure my collar to that. Take my scissors, cut my butt ends away. If I got a little too much, no problem. We're going to tie this collar in the round. Take 1 turn, 2 turns, 3, while keeping some thread pressure. Push down on it, and that's going to help distribute it, that collar of deer hair, 360 degrees around that hook. And now, the trick to this is, as you can see, is we want to have pressure both up and down. So while holding my collar, I'm going to pull up on the thread, down on the thread, up on the thread, down on the thread, up on the thread, down on the thread, and fish it through. And then that'll give me my nice little collar there. The next thing you can do, if I can find it here, just had it somewhere. Stand by, there it is. You can take this little tool, I'll show you how you can use this. This works out pretty good. And you can put this right on here, and this will hold your collar for you clean out of the way for when we go to cut later. Good to go. Now, we're actually we're sort of stacking the hair on this guy. That way you'll get a nice even bunch on here. We want this one to be pretty dense as opposed to, you know, the other ones that I tie. So find yourself a nice little bundle, about what you think you need, maybe half of that. Clip your butt ends. Take 1 turn, 2 turns, 3, and then we're just going to manipulate that bundle and push it and pull it to the underside, and then pull up and right through it. Take another bundle. It's going to be for the top. Probably won't need as much. Same thing, clean it out. Cut what you need. Lay it right on top. Right through the center. 1 turn, 2 turns, 3. Pull through, like you see here. I got a nice pile of hair going through that whole fly. And then we got to fish our hair, our thread rather, through the hair so that we can get it in front. Sorry about that. Of course, my furnace kicks on again. So I've advanced my thread, fiddled it through there. The nice thing about this front batch is you could stack that behind it again if you're like you did in the back portion, but for this front batch, we can just spin this. As long as you use a sizable clump of deer hair, you can spin this front section. So that's what I'm going to do. Clean it, cut the butt ends, take out what I don't need, put it right here, grab it with, loosen up your thread here. 1, and you'll see what happens. This is inevitably what happens. So I got to put that deer hair on an angle. So 1, 2, 3, hold some pressure, push down, spin her through. Now the hard part, because that hair can only go so far because of that plastic dumbbell eye, it's going to require a little bit of work on your behalf to get that thread as I just move my whole vise. So that you can tie off And get your whip finish tool. Do your whip finish in front. Trim it off. Now, I use a pair of curved scissors for these, but the first thing you're going to want to do is get yourself a fresh blade, because the more hair you have on the hook, the quicker these things become dull. So if you talk to people who do a lot of bass bugs, this is the one style, especially there's more compressed hair here, where you're going to burn through razors like crazy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this relatively into the shape that I want. Take that first cut. And the nice thing with that tool is that's taken that whole collar completely out of the equation. So I do my top and bottom cuts first. And these are just rough cuts because we're going to do all the fine work in a moment here. And any of these here you can just kind of cut out. That way you don't have to worry about them later. That's kind of what I recommend. I take my curved scissors now and I go in where the eyes are. I just kind of cut in front of them. That way it gives me an idea where I know where those eyeballs are. Same thing. These are all rough cuts right here, as you'll see. I do a lot of the finer work with the fly out of the vise. You're going to see all this in a second here. In hand. I'll do as much as I can in the vise so you can kind of see. And then I'm going to pull the whole thing out in a moment here. The rest of this I'm going to do in hand. Try and cut as much of this out as I possibly can. And then I'm going to do this on the board here. Alright, so I'm going to switch the camera. Give me a sec. Alright, so this makes things kind of difficult to do, but I'm going to show you the best I can. Now I'm going to just come in here, and this is where all the finer work gets done with your razor blades and your scissors, as you'll see here. And this is just to make the general size. And you can see I've got some more cutting to do across the bottom here, just so that I can kind of make this shaped the way that I really want it to look. Yeah. And I won't spend the whole time detailing how I cut this, because you can kind of understand what's going on here pretty easily. This takes the most amount of time in the whole fly, so you kind of get the general idea. Okay, so I've already done everything else. Now I'm just going to show you the last little step, and that's just going to be to put these pupils on these eyes. And all they are is just a little black sticker, circular sticker that goes right on the center. I mean, they come with all of these. They're kind of difficult if you got big fingers like me to get them right in place. What I typically do after I put them on is put them on both sides. I'll just coat them with a thin layer of resin. But just to make sure they don't go anywhere. One. there's two, and there's your snake oil streamer. We did this one in a fun little color scheme, black and purple, a little less flash. That's it. There's a lot of time spent carving the head to the shape that you want. You can kind of see this thing's basically the same diameter or width of that plastic dumbbell eye. So that's it. You can check these out in the store if you don't want to tie them. Like I said, I do these in a couple different sizes, slew of colors, and some customs. So this one's going in my box. I'll catch you guys in a couple weeks.